excited because I am going to get the opportunity to chat with Kat Kirst, and you are going to be able to listen in on the entire conversation that we have today. Now, Kat Kirst is a wonderful author, and her newest book that she just wrote is called The Cost of Living Forever. I just finished reading this book personally and absolutely fell in love with the idea, the characters, and everything about it. It really hits on a tough topic of what if you were to discover a pill that could keep you alive forever? What would you do? And unfortunately, these pills get into the hands of the wrong people, and they use it to extend their lives, and they create more pills that actually make other people work for them in a half state of mind. And it just captivated my attention right from the beginning with the characters and this young boy who is coming into manhood and is about to take his first pill, and we find out that he ends up falling in love with one of the hired hands. And because of that love that he ends up growing in his heart, he starts actually being more open-minded to what's happening around him. He's lived a very sheltered life, and from there the drama continues from the very beginning of the book all the way to the end. And so if you are interested in a really great read, you got to check out The Cost of Living Forever by Kat Kirst. And what's really interesting about Kat Kirst is she's been a classroom teacher teaching in the junior high school, and she has just recently retired so that she could focus on her writing career. And she's really proud because she has just graduated from 8th grade. So she's super excited about that, right, Kat? And she lives in Dickinson, Texas with her husband, who is her technology savior, we'll call him today.
He's here too.
So without further ado, here is Kat Kirst.
Hi. Hi. It's great to be here.
Excellent. You know what I would love to know, Kat, when did you start writing?
Well, without knowing it, I guess I've written my whole life. And I would, when I really wanted something done, I would write that letter, and most of the time it got people's attention. I always wrote for my classroom. When they needed examples of things, I would write the whole thing, and I would write little mini stories so that I could teach what I needed to teach and exactly how I needed to teach it, and I just always did that. And then I had kids who love stories. They loved it when I read to them, but they hated to read. And so, there's that component, that actual how to read. They're focusing so much on how do I sound this word out. They have no bank of sight words. And so I thought I need to write a book for them where they can succeed, and those words will be easy and those chapters will be short. And that was my first book, and I also wrote it about them. I had so many kids who had so many problems, horrible family lives that you wonder how they can survive them. And so I wrote my first book, Surviving My Family, for those kids, and I knew I had a winner, and I know I have a winner in that. That is a niche book. That is a book for kids who really, truly have those problems. They identify with that book, and they eat it up, and they want more. They can be a total non-reader, and they will read that book, and they will come with it into my classroom clutched to their chest and saying, I love this book. And that's the best thing. I mean, I took non-readers and made them reluctant readers, and I took some non-readers and made them readers with that book. So I'm very proud of that. It did what it was supposed to do. And then I started challenging myself. Like I wrote my second book with a boy as the hero because there's not a lot of boy books, and I thought I can do this. And then I also play with which person is going to tell the book, tell the story. Is it going to be first person? Is it going to be third person? Is it going to be what point of view? Am I going to write it in present tense? Am I going to write it in past tense? the one I'm writing right now, which is, I'm into it about 40,000 words. I'm writing that in first person, present tense. And it's really kind of hard, but it's also kind of hard hitting, because when you see it, when my character sees it or thinks it, she can say it. She can react to it. But yeah, that's how I got started writing, and the stories just kind of tumble out of my fingers. That's the best way I can say it. It's just a story. I know
Wow.
where I'm going to start. I know where I'm going to stop, but I don't always know I'm going to get there. And so I have a question for you. I wonder, because everybody comes out differently. Some of my characters, when I start with them, they're just like necessary characters, like a waiter in a restaurant. You know, they have to be there. But sometimes they evolve. So my question to you is, of the lesser characters in the book, which was your favorite? Putting you on the spot now.
Yeah, you are. You are. You know who it was, and I can't remember his name, so you have to help me out with his name. But I really like the guy that was of those lesser characters. He worked with Adri in the barn.
Oh, Dungus.
Yes, yes, that's the one, Dungus. Uh-huh.
Isn't that amazing? Because he was kind of gross.
In your mind, he was kind of gross. But when I read him, I saw him as just a really like a nice guy trying to help, Adri out and do the things that she needed to be able to do. And I don't know, I really liked him.
And he is. And I wrote him, I wanted him to have this grossness about him, so that was almost like his shield, because it's a dangerous world out there. He's really
Mhm.
got a big heart. He is really smart, but that's why, people don't give him credit. So
Yeah.
my favorite was Elfie. She was,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, see, she was a total surprise. She was supposed to be a waitress, and she became a person. A really cute one.
Yeah, yeah.
So
How do you go about when you create your characters? How do you go about that?
big ones or little ones? Big characters or little characters?
Let's start with your big characters.
My big characters, everybody has needs and wants, and I try and identify in my head what they are. I mean, everybody in life has something they want, and like, you eat dinner differently every night. If you just want to get those dishes cleaned up because your favorite show's on, you're going to eat dinner differently than if you want to sit and relax and talk about the day. So everybody wants something different. And those big things that my big characters want, I try and identify those. And everybody needs to have flaws,
Hmm.
because we all do. And I also am really interested in how people see things, the same situation, but you see it a different way than I see it. And
Yeah,
kind of,
perspective.
yeah, and you react to a situation a certain way because of your history, because of something, and then people look at your reaction and they judge you on that, when in reality they don't even know what your history is. So that's really fun to play with, and you can lead a reader one way when really it's something else.
Mm.
So I like that. That's fun. And I think about that when I write my characters.
Oh, very cool. And so do you like actually write down like a script with all that information on there before you start, or is it something that you just have in your head?
It evolves, and sometimes I write it down. The more difficult the book, the more notes I have to keep. Um, but it evolves, and that's the fun part. The evolution is really fun, because sometimes the character becomes someone, like, I didn't start out with Dungus being with that, Dungus putting up his disgusting outer demeanor just to uh, to protect himself. I didn't start off with that. I didn't think Dirk was going to be anybody at all.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I really didn't. And then one day I thought, ooh, boom, he's back. So yeah, yeah, I do keep. But to answer your question, yeah, I do keep a lot of notes. The lesser characters are just a delightful surprise, like Elfie was. She was just,
Okay.
and you know, I thought if I ever write book number 2, can you see Aunt trying to deal with Elfie?
Yes.
That could be fun.
Yeah.
'Cause
Yeah. Well, I even wrote on my thing on Amazon, and I think on Goodreads as well, that I really hope that there is a second book. I would love to see what happens next. You know, this is one of those books, like you get to the end and you're like, okay, now I want to know what their world is like now. Like now that they have, destroyed, I'm not going to give away too much of it, but now that some of the big characters that were controlling people are no longer in the picture, what does the world look like now?
Yeah, because some are.
Uh-huh.
So,
Uh-huh. Well, that's very cool. I love how you develop your characters. That's really insightful. As I even start playing with mine, I love how your passion and your commitment really started from the need of kids, and that's exactly where my writing passion came from as well. And I dabble a little bit in picture books and that kind of stuff. I haven't dabbled in the chapter books yet, but being able to write from a place where you know and where you can be of service and helpful. That's how I wrote my book, 31 Days to Become a Better Reader, because I wanted to give a tool to parents because they kept asking me, what else can I do to help my child? And uh, and I thought, gosh, if I had a book that had like little snippets of things they could do for 31 days, that would
mm,
be really helpful. So how awesome. Both of us have really gotten this passion for writing in such a powerful way. When you're going through, I've noticed for me that the editing process is what takes up most of my time. Like the writing part seems to be pretty easy, like you said. Like the words just come to you, and you write 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 and write and write, and then next day you pick it up and you write and write and write and write. But then that editing process, holy cow, nobody prepared us for that, I don't think. But the editing process seems to be the most time consuming piece for me. What's your experience with that?
well, let's see. This morning I got up at about 6:10, and I think I edited for about 2 hours before I started actually writing.
Okay.
And yeah, there's so many kinds of editing.
Hmm.
There's line editing, trying to figure out where the commas and the periods all go, and then there's continuity, figuring out if the person is in a skirt on one page and in jeans on the next. And then there's just, this is really clunky writing, or this is boring writing, or but that's my favorite part of editing, is when I've got it on paper and I go back and I have to leave some time. You have to leave some time, just kind of forget, put it in a drawer for a while, come out and you read it, and you know what the picture is in your mind, and you're thinking, is my reader getting this picture? And that's when I start adding details and start, oh, I never said they're sitting at the table, or oh, I never said the part, and so you have to add those little things in and figure out where to add them in. Or if, let's say, this is a great place to show the character's weakness, put a little dig in there. Oh, I need this thing in my story right now for later on, chapters down, so let's just mention it right here, so it's here but not here. So yeah,
Hmm.
I love that part. It's when the story really comes alive.
That it's and that revising piece, hey, like that constant revising that's happening.
I read a thing once, and I always tell myself this. It was about an art student who kept revising and revising and revising and revising, and his teacher looked at him one day and said, "Sometimes it's just time to hang the picture on the wall."
Hmm.
Oh, and I tell myself, "Hang the picture, Kat. Hang the picture," because I could never stop revising.
Hmm.
And then
Hmm.
you might lose voice, you might lose your character's voice, because you just have to be careful. But it has to be done a lot. And then I have a lot of beta readers. I put my manuscripts in the hands of a lot of kids, and I give them a pen and I say, mark it up. And they love that, because
Hmm.
me up instead of me marking them up. And they love that, and then they feel empowered too. And if you look at my books, every single kid on my book is one of my students. Every
Mm.
single picture on my book are my students. And some of the artwork is from my students. And the back blurbs before I put them out there, I put them all in front of my students, and I say, what do I need to do? And they tell me.
Hmm.
And they're usually pretty consistent between classes, between kids. They're consistent, and I listen.
So now that you're not in the classroom anymore and you're writing a new book, do you think the revising and editing stage going to change for you?
Boy, I'm trying to figure that one out. I am. That was a huge part of me not retiring because I had this plethora of readers, and they would just slam my books. But I do have a really good friend who's a librarian, and I do have a lot of English teacher friends, and I come from a very large school district, and I've done a school talk, and I have more school talks scheduled, and I think I'm going to just use those people and use those kids and do what I always do, which is give them a
Yep.
hard copy and a notebook, a red pen, and a bunch of sticky notes, and just have them go at it.
There we go. That makes for an awesome experience for kids when it comes to an author visit, for sure. I'm writing a book right now called Then What Happened, and it's all about it's all nursery rhymes, but then what happened. So, like Humpty Dumpty, what happens to him? At the end of Humpty Dumpty, he's just like a pile of shells, right? So, what happens next? And I always ask the kids, do you think he should live or do you think he should die? And I get a mixed response all of the time from them. And
That's
but I have
such
one
a
little girl who said, I think he should live. And I said, so how should he live? And she goes, well, I think when they put him back together, he should be put together backwards.
See, you can't think of things like that, but they
I
can.
can't think of things like that. No, no. So poor Humpty Dumpty ended up back together, but his butt was on his head.
Perfect.
Exactly, right? And the kids are going to be the illustrators, but I find too that when it comes to author visits, that's what makes it so much more personable when you're able to add the kids in there, get their feedback, their ideas, and all of that kind of stuff. As writers, we just jump at that opportunity to be able to get that kind of feedback and information.
I wrote one book and I was totally ready to publish it, and I had a boy read it, and he came to me and shaking his head. He goes, "It's a great book, but the poor main character. At the end, this happens and that happens." He said, "Instead, I'd like to see him." And he tells me how he'd like to see it. And I looked at him and I went, "Oh, Jerry, I have to go rewrite the whole end." I went home that night and I rewrote the ending of the book, and I brought it back and I put the paper in front of him and I went, "There. Is it okay now?" And he read it and he goes, "Yeah, this will work." So yeah, I know what you're saying.
Yeah, and it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun to be able to do that with the kiddos. I, what piece of the writing process do you enjoy the most?
Oh, there's so much of it. I love making the characters up. They're almost real. I know they're not real, but they're almost real. I love that part of editing I told you about. I love telling stories. Um, I love making the words pretty on the page. I try and make my books a little more literary than kids are used to reading. I try and work with alliteration and metaphors and similes and things like that, real things that just kind of push their reading skills a little. I absolutely love, twice now I've been either far away from home or out of state and had kids know my books. That was pretty cool.
Hmm.
They knew my books and they knew what it said. In one of my books, I have the dad rule, and I've had a lot of kids say that everybody should have the dad rule. And that's basically if you're ever out and you get in trouble, you can call your parents, they'll come pick you up, and there will be no questions. And that was my rule.
Mhm.
But in one of my books, I put it in there and I called it the dad rule. And I've had so many kids say, you know, that rule should be every kid's rule. So I love things like that. I did something, well, my daddy did something really well for a lot of people, really good for a lot of people.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So how does your family respond to you now as being an author?
Well, my husband is my biggest cheerleader. He gives my cards out everywhere, and he's a pilot, so he goes a lot of places, and he always calls with the card count. And my daughter is my graphic artist. She is a graphic artist, and so she does my covers. Um, my son is Mr. Computer Whiz, and he's always telling me all these things I need to do, which my brain goes into drone because for him, computers, he grew up on them. For me, everything is learned. But my family is very supportive, and I think they're proud of me, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned that word drone, okay, and I remember the drones that were inside of your book.
Yeah.
And I just heard a story that Amazon is now going to be using drones to be delivering some of their books.
Well, now I saw that, and I saw the drone, and it looks like a flat, spidery thing. Now, having a husband who's a pilot, we're kind of concerned about these little drones up in the sky. And besides that, I have a dog, and I just so know where outside and the drone landed. It would be like the most amazing squirrel attack ever. So I think it's cool, but let's see how they do it. I don't want
Yeah. As soon as I heard that, I'm like, you've got to be kidding. I just read a book with drones in it, and here there's these drones that are going to be delivering books. How quite interesting.
5 pounds, and they said 80% of their deliveries are 5 pounds and under. So see what happens.
Yeah. Now, your books that you write, I am obviously an adult and have totally enjoyed reading this book, but it seems like your person that you're specifically writing to would be middle school, high school kids. Would that be right?
Yeah, I am young adult. I mean, I know the kids. I know the cadence of their speech. I know the slang. Um, I know the reactions. I'm comfortable there. I'm really comfortable there. And I know the things they perceive as problems or are problems and the way they react. I mean, I've been in a junior high my forever. And I loved it. I really never wanted to go anywhere but junior high. Um,
Mm.
but yeah, it's just my audience. It's just my comfort, my comfortable place.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's why I like young adult. Now, I'm glad I know that older kids can enjoy my books because they have, and I know adults can enjoy my books because they have. But I specifically craft them for the young adult, which leaves me with some problems. I'm old school, and all the swearing and the cursing that I know the kids did. I mean, I was there. Um, I kind of sort of try and keep that to a minimum. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I've some really good young adult that doesn't, but I just try and keep that to a minimum. There are some words like my new book that I'm working on right now. They say a couple words that are just kind of mainstream and don't really even have the same meaning they had when I was in school.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I want to keep my books so that parents would want their children to read them,
Yeah.
but not so clean cut that the kids would go, that would never happen. Because I think my some of my books are very, very contemporary and very real. And Snitch is one. Some of the stuff that happened in Snitch really happened, and
Mm-hmm.
pieces of it really happened. And I've modified them here or taken a piece here and a piece there to help build my story. Some of it's just totally out of my head, but yeah, I want to keep it. I want to keep it real.
Yeah. And I read Snitch as well, and that was a fantastic book. So you
Yeah.
have written so far 3 books. You got Surviving My Family, Snitch, and The Cost of Living Forever. And you're currently writing a new book called Touch. Can you
Mhm.
give us a little inside information on Touch?
You will be surprised to know that I have a fourth book out there already. It's a small novella and it's called Between Night and Morning.
Oh,
It's a bunch of little ghosty stories, but I wrote those in a little more of a literary fashion. It's not
okay.
guts and gore and it's not that kind of stuff. It's stuff that, ooh, what if that really did happen? Stuff,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
for sure. So it's really good for the reluctant or the non-reader because they can get through a 15-page story and they've read it. You
Hmm,
have
hmm.
to think about what if that could happen. So that's kind of a cool one. But my new book Touch, which I don't know when that's going to come out. But that is I refinish furniture and I do it a lot and I always wonder what has this furniture seen. So I came up with this idea. What if this I made it a girl, she's 16 years old. When she touches anything old, the feelings, the stories come up her arm and she suddenly she sees it, she feels it, she smells it. And
Wow.
it's happened to her whole life. And so she has learned not to talk about it because her mother does not want her talking about it, but to whenever she's in a place where there's something old, her hands immediately go in her pocket. She
Mm,
stays out of certain stores. She doesn't like to go to resale shops or to antique shops. She goes to the mall where everything's new.
mm,
And so it's a mystery because she's got to learn to use her powers, and she's got to help some people, and she's got to figure out what happened in the past. That's really hard
mm.
because I've got 3 stories within one story in this story, and some days I just cannot face my word processor. I just have to let it go. And I have a lot of notes. Double-sided arrows, circles. I have notes all over the place.
Oh, I can imagine. It sounds like a very complicated topic, yet a very interesting and intriguing
Yeah.
story. So I can't wait to to have you finish that so that I can read it.
Trying to finish it. I worked on it really hard today, but I never know exactly how long these are going to turn out, but I think I'm about 3/4 of the way through it. I'm
Okay, that's a good way.
a reader. I mean, I need somebody to look at that.
Ah, there's always a set of eyes. You bet, you bet. I love reading your books. I love your creativity. I love how you get all of your ideas and you're able to package them into amazing stories that people want to be able to read and pass on to others. And that's how I felt when I read your book was, oh, I can't just keep this book for myself. I have to pass this on for other people to read. And I don't always feel that way about every book I read. Some books you read and you feel satisfied and you're done. And like this is one of those books you're like, oh, I've got to pass this on to my father-in-law. He has to read this. So your book is going to get into many more hands for sure that way as well because um, it's just so great. It's so fantastic, and I hope that people will be able to check this out. Where can people find your book if they want to be able to purchase it?
Well, if you Google my name, Kat Kirst, and you Google in the cost of living forever, it'll pop right up. It's at Amazon right now. It's also available on Kindle, but it's something very, you can Google me. I'll be right. Yeah, I've got a website. I've got my Facebook. It's everywhere.
Absolutely. And my favorite place to go is always Amazon. I know you're on Amazon as well.
Yeah, I am. I have a Goodreads page, and I'm starting to get my reviews coming in, and they are all very positive, and they all say the same thing, which surprised me. They all talk about how you don't know what's coming next, and there's so many twists and turns, and I didn't expect that. It's weird. Everybody, it's weird.
Yeah. Well, very cool. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to take this interview with me and to play with the technology. Google Hangouts rocks. I absolutely love the ability that it gives people to be able to connect more and be able to spread awesome people like you into the world. So, thank you so much, and have a wonderful rest of your day.
You too, stay warm.
Will do.